2067th year. As a result of abnormal climatic warming, massive fires began on Earth. The world turned into ashes, plants died out, and natural oxygen disappeared. As a result, the last illuminated city on the planet remains, in which people breathe with the help of synthetic oxygen. Many people start vomiting blood because of this, and after a while they die. This syndrome is nicknamed consumption. Humanity is doomed to extinction. Ethan White works in the tunnel with his partner Jude Mathers. Both of them are engaged in technical work to maintain the stable operation of a nuclear reactor, without proper support of which a nuclear explosion may occur. Ethan has been wearing a bracelet on his arm since childhood, which he cannot take off and on which the red indicator is constantly on. He has a wife named Xantha, who also suffers from consumption. Ethan is sure that he will be able to help her if he works more, earns more money, and buys his wife a more perfect breathing mask. One day, Regina Jackson, the head of the particle research department, calls him in. Jude, who saved him as a child and constantly looks after him, follows. In her office, Regina informs that Ethan can save everyone and brings him to the laboratory where the guy's father Richard White once worked, the mention of which causes him negative emotions. In the laboratory, he is shown a device called the Chronicle. It is capable of not only sending signals, as well as objects into the future, but also receiving answers back. The guy is informed that a signal was sent earlier. Such an operation does not require much power, to check if there is something on the other side. It turned out that the future is on the other side 407 years from current events. At first, this surprises the guy, because according to the forecast of scientists, people will have to die out in a maximum of 20 years, and if an answer comes from the future, then someone has found a way to prevent extinction. But he is even more surprised when he is shown a message he received from the future, which reads, "I need Ethan White." At first, Ethan categorically refuses to go anywhere. The viewer is shown a flashback, in which it is revealed that when the guy turned 8 years old, his father built a gift in the form of a box. And when Ethan put his hand in there, the same bracelet with a burning red indicator was fixed on it, after which the father left. And later, when he called home and asked his mother and son to go outside, they were attacked. As a result, the mother died at the hands of the attacker, and the guy was saved by the same Jude Mathers. At home, Xantha persuades her husband to hit the road and find a way to save humanity. Ethan himself leaves her a flower made of metal, on which it is written, "I'll find a way to get back to you." Before sending, one of the scientists gives the guy a device named ARC, which will help him in his mission, and also informs him that they will monitor his vital signs. When Ethan arrives in the future, his suit begins to burn, and when the hero manages to take it off, it explodes. Upon regaining consciousness, Ethan discovers a completely habitable area around, similar to a jungle, and concludes that people really found a cure for consumption and were able to restore the planet. However, no living people can be found around. Similarly, ARC cannot detect any satellites. After walking a little deeper into the jungle, Ethan discovers someone's skeleton with a hole in the head in the forehead area. After examining the clothes on the skeleton and comparing the bracelet on his arm, Ethan realizes that this is his skeleton. The only difference is that the bracelet on the skeleton's arm lights up with a green indicator. Having initially lost hope, Ethan records a video message in which he says, "It looks like I'm going to die here." After searching the skeleton a bit, Ethan discovers a time-worn but still working laptop with a non-working screen and a 2% charge level. After asking this version of ARC to play the last recording, Ethan hears snatches of messages. His own voice, "It looks like I'm going to die here," and Mathers' voice, "Maybe it's for the best. It doesn't hurt any of them anymore," the guy's voice says again, "which you had to sacrifice." And Mathers answers him, "I became your family, it's all for you," and after Mathers screams with the words, "This is our destiny. Breathe. Resist." And a shot is heard crying. After searching the jungle and not being able to find anyone, Ethan was able to make a fire in the middle of the night, and since he could not find food, he eats berries that are not in the ARC database. Ethan loses consciousness, and when he wakes up, he finds out that in 2067, watching his indicators, they noticed an increase in the level of toxins in the body and sent Mathers so that he could inject the antidote and save the guy. After showing the found skeleton, Jude tries to convince the guy that these are not his remains. At the same time, Jude himself behaves strangely and is constantly nervous. At the same time, ARC managed to find some kind of signal, and he leads his partners to the bunker. Once inside, the partners discover the control panel. Ethan presses the enter key. The bracelet causes a slight bleeding, and when the message access is allowed, lights up on the remote control. The indicator on the bracelet turns green, the light turns on, and the partners see that in front of them is a chronicle that connects them to the 2067th year. A timer starts, which informs you that you need to wait 4 hours before activation. Jude is pleased that they will be able to return home, while Ethan cannot understand why the bunker is empty. Moreover, Ethan believes that the green indicator on the skeleton's bracelet means that these events have already happened and they missed something. However, Jude continues to act nervous and still claims that that skeleton is not Ethan. Ethan starts recording the chronicle Chronicle's archive data and sees a hologram of his father in front of him. Richard White reports that the Chronicle will send a request to the future, hoping to get an answer to find out how they managed to prevent extinction and restore the planet. Richard gets the answer that it's 2074 years old on the other side and receives the same message, "I need Ethan White." Regina Jackson, who appeared, begins to believe that this is not a signal from the future, but Richard himself introduced this message. Regina wants to send the matter, but at this moment the laboratory scientist reports that a breakdown occurred in 2474. At the same moment, the message is interrupted and Ethan and Jude realize that there has been a power failure of the nuclear reactor. Ethan can't figure out a few things: who eventually repaired the reactor, who sent the message to send it, where at least someone can get medicine from, and why Mathers was sent and not, for example, some medical soldier. Jude is nervous and asks the guy to help restore the reactor and power supply, but agrees to take another look around the neighborhood. Approaching the edge of the jungle, the heroes discover the remains of the oxygen plant and the city they know. Everything is overgrown with greenery. Going inside the city and finding several remains, Ethan realizes that there is no cure and people have not found a way to survive. The planet simply waited for humanity to die out, after which it recovered, since people could no longer interfere with its vital activity. After finding his wife's classroom, Ethan discovers Xantha's remains, a flower left with the inscription, "I will find a way to return to you," and a message written by her, "It's a pity that you didn't come back." Ethan begins to blame himself for not returning to his wife, and Jude tells him that this is not the case. After which he utters the very phrase from the recording of Archie, "Maybe it's for the best." None of them are in pain anymore. Shocked, Ethan asks Archie from the past to play archived recordings. Hearing this, a dumbfounded Jude pulls out a gun and points it at the guy. After that, he begins to walk nervously and repeat, "I'm in control of everything." Ethan thinks Jude is going to shoot him, but Jude only pushes the guy to go back and rebuild the reactor. After going down to the reactor room, Ethan realizes that he needs to redirect the energy. The first attempt fails, and the door starts to close. Jude begins to support the door, and Ethan informs him that he needs to switch the backup lever during pressure relief, after which he decides to sacrifice himself by pushing Mathers outside the room and switching the desired lever. Reactor operation is restored, and everything is back to normal. However, Jude is not going to leave the guy to die, and finds a way to get into the room to save him. The guys, returning to the control panel, see that there are 37 minutes left before the system is activated, and there are no critical system failures. Jude sighs with relief and just wants to rest, and Ethan decides to find out what one of the doors opens. Discovers that those very remains of him lie behind it. Ethan rearranges the insides from the old Archie to the new one, and in front of Mathers, asks him to play the last video. It shows how the characters swear, and Jude puts a gun to the guy's forehead. Jude covers the Archie screen with his hand, after which a shot is heard. Ethan is trying to search the bunker in the hope of still finding a cure. Unsuccessful, Ethan decides to finish watching the Chronicle's archive recordings. However, Jude tries to prevent him from doing this by trying to break the memory module in a separate room. The guy manages to lock Mathers in there, and he sits down to watch the rest of the recording. On it, Richard White reports that all his work was solely for the sake of his son. His plan was for Ethan to go into the future and stay where he could live longer. Further on, the recording shows that Regina and young Jude enter the room. Richard realizes that Regina's goal is not to find a cure, but to escape with a couple dozen chosen ones. Her father informs her that he has programmed the system so that at the other end it can only be activated using his son's DNA. In order for Richard not to interfere with Regina's plan, she kills him, and then orders Jude to become a guardian angel for the guy so that he will eventually be sent to the future and activate the portal. Jude gets out of the locked room and tries to convince the guy that the past can no longer be saved. As a result of the growing conflict between them, a dialogue arises that Ethan heard during the recording, and when Ethan tries to break the portal, Jude attacks him and puts a gun to his forehead. However, instead of shooting the guy, Jude shoots himself. At the same time, in 2067, a select group is preparing to be sent into the future. While waiting for the guy to return, Regina orders one of the lab guards to kill him when he appears and leave him here. That explains the remains that Ethan found. However, instead of the guy, plants from the future and an Archie arrive at the laboratory, which plays a video recording of when Regina killed Richard White. After that, Ethan sends the message, "I need Ethan White," to an earlier past, interrupts the connection and destroys the Chronicle. In 2067, Xantha watches TV and learns that after receiving the video, Regina was arrested, the company was searched, several plant species were found, and humanity may have a chance for an ecological revival. Xantha herself receives a live flower. In 2474, after burying Mathers, Ethan places a metal flower near his grave and sees that there is no message from Xantha on it. Then turning his head, to his surprise he sees a live butterfly. Running to the exit, Ethan sees that his skeleton has disappeared. Running to the cliff at the edge of the jungle, the hero sees the city of the future below in front of him.